All right, we're recording. This topic came up, as Katrina said, due to all the hiring, but it was definitely an item that one of our members really wanted us to tackle and that it was really important that this is something that WIN could do for its membership and others. So I just wanted to let you all know as WIN members or others, if there's a topic you want us to tackle, please let us know. And we as regional reps really want to do as much as we can for you all. So thank you for that comment. So we have a great panel today. I don't want to take too much time, but today we have Steve Cole, who is the Assistant State for Field Operations in Minnesota. After Steve, we'll have Clifford Thornton, Assistant State Con for Field Operations in Kansas, Christine Clark, State Conservationist of Massachusetts, and J.R. Flores, State Conservationist of Missouri. Thank you all for taking time today to speak with us and for the WIN membership. I know it's a crazy time of year right now, into the fiscal year. And so, Steve, if you could just say a few words about your position, and then we'll take it. You can take it from there.
All right, thanks, Heather. I can tell that there's some technology issues with the phone call today, so if I'm not coming in loud and clear, please somebody break in and let me know that. Like Heather said, I'm the Assistant State Conservationist for Field Operations in the northeast area of Minnesota. I serve 20 field offices covering 26 counties. My educational background is a bachelor's degree from NDSU in zoology with a wildlife minor. I started with FCS as a GS4 student co-op, and I've been a 457 series my entire career, moving up through the line and staff. I served as a DC in both Minnesota and North Dakota. In fact, Mr. Flores hired me in North Dakota back in 2007. I served on multiple details in California, Iowa, and national headquarters. I served on the National Civil Rights Division Civil Rights Compliance Review Cadre for several years. And I'm a NEDC instructor for Managing for Excellence. So the first thing I wanted to do was to just start with some general comments about interviews and resumes. First and most importantly is to take the process seriously. That comes through as we as selecting officials go through the documents, that we can tell who put the extra effort in and who didn't. And the other important reason to take it very seriously is that you get very little exposure through this process. So you want to take the best step forward that you can through your resume and your interview answers and your questionnaire. One thing I'd also like to say is that any advice you see or get professional advice on interviewing, all of those things apply to interviewing on the telephone as well as they do for face-to-face. And that includes your appearance and your mannerisms and how you go through the process. Most of the time you can feel a smile through the phone. You can feel a scowl through the phone. So when you're taking a telephone interview, dress the part and act the part as if you were in person. In Minnesota, the way that we're doing our interviewing right now, I'm just going to spend a few seconds on that, is we do usually between 8 to 10 interview questions in an hour interview. We rank each question with a score from 0 to 5. And it's all based on, we're always looking for specific answers to all of our questions, and that's always stated in the questions. And the scoring is based on whether or not you answered the question, did you give specific examples, and then what was the quality of those specific examples. So let's say you gave an answer, but there were no examples in it, you would be in the 1 or 2 point category. Whereas if you were very specific, you would be in 3 and above. So that system's been kind of adopted from 3 or 4 other states. I know that Idaho uses a similar process. Texas uses a similar process. Maine, I think, uses a similar process. So that's just a little background so you know how you're being ranked. I'm going to go over my don'ts real quick because it's a short list. My number 1 don't is don't use the resume builder in USA Jobs. It comes out as a printed product as pretty bad. So build yourself a cadre of people around you that can review your resumes and submit a professional resume in Adobe or Word format into USA Jobs. Number 2 don't is don't put on your resume to not contact your current supervisor or to contact you first. That's just a personal opinion, but it usually sets off a red flag to the person that's looking at the resume. And I'll elaborate that on my do's. So the number 3 don't is don't wing it and don't ramble. Be prepared. And number 4, just to round out the don'ts, is don't complain about anything or anybody. This is not the format for that in an interview. It's a time to be positive and upbeat. That's all the don'ts that I have. When I move over to the do's, goes back to my first don't, is do prepare a professional resume in a Word or PDF format to submit to USA Jobs. And one of the most important things for me as I go through and look at them is that they show your career path. I usually don't get a lot of time to go through resumes. Usually for anything other than a pathways program, I have 1 or 2 days to go through the resumes and look at things before we put together our interview panel and get things going. So I need to be able to look at a resume and see your career path kind of jump off the pages to me and what it is that's important about you. My second do is definitely discuss your career goals and wishes with your supervisor. Regardless of your relationship with your supervisor, it's going to be important at some point. I don't know about all other states, but I know in Minnesota, supervisors always get a call. So it's best that you have that out front and you have those discussions with your supervisor and get your wishes out in the open. Have those discussions. My next do is to prepare for your interview. You would be amazed how many times I get into interviews and clearly the applicants are not prepared to answer questions. As simple as that sounds, make sure that you jot down examples of your technical skills, of your leadership skills. It really depends on the grade and the type of job that you're applying for. And as you're jotting down those examples for yourself, make sure that you include results, because that's what we're all looking for, right? And at the end of the day, we're looking at what were the results of all these activities and all the skills that you've learned. Personally, to help me do those things for both building my resume, doing my end of year performance reviews, I keep a daily journal. And I go back to that daily journal all the time to see, okay, what did I do in this fiscal year? What are the things that I need to add to my resume? What are some things that were out of the norm that I did this year? And I personally use the old school OF67 activity schedule, but I know a lot of people use red and blacks, or they use just a regular journal. But by all means, keep a journal so that you can track your career progress. Take the time, the other do is take the time during the interview to prepare notes, prepare your response. If you need something clarified, ask the interviewer if they could clarify it. And, you know, instead of a little awkward silence on the phone, you can just tell them that, hey, I'm writing some notes here. Thank you very much for the question. And when I say take some time, 30 seconds to a minute is probably acceptable. If you get much past a minute of dead air, it gets to be an awkward silence. The last couple of things I have is make sure that you be as polite as possible. It should seem obvious, but I've encountered the opposite. And one of the last things, and what I feel is really important, is you need to make the ask. At some point during the interview process, you need to ask the interviewers for the job. It's usually appropriate to do that at the end. Interviewers will usually ask you for any additional comments. That's a good time to make the ask, and you can have that prepared in advance. So I know we have a lot of other folks on the panel, so I'll yield the rest of my time on that and wait to hear your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Clifford?
Good morning, good afternoon. This is Clifford. I am currently the Assistant for Field Operations in Southeast Kansas. I provide leadership to 24 counties and 18 offices here in the state, and I've been here for about 6 years. During that time, I had an opportunity to go work in headquarters on the Conservation Planning and Technical Assistance Division for 2 months. Also had an opportunity to act state conservationist in Kentucky. And prior to coming back to Kansas, where I started my career, I worked as an assistant for field operations in Southwest Ohio for 8 years. And of that time, I had an opportunity to go to South Carolina for 6 months and act with Miss English there as the assistant for operations, and also have some experience, 5 years as an RC&D coordinator prior to that, as well as 5 years as a district conservationist in Kansas. And want to just kind of certainly thank Steve for his do's and don'ts. Those are awesome. One of the things I want to add, a few of the things I want to add to that is making sure that you put it on paper. Just because you think you know the selecting official, don't assume that that selecting official is going to be the only one that's going to look at that resume. So, and rank that resume and your application. So make sure you put it on paper. I want to highlight some of the key points that I look for in an interview are personality, professionalism, interest in the job, as well as the fit for the job. That's what I look for in the interview. And then some of the do's and don'ts in the interview. I expect, or some of the do's are to be prepared. A brief bio, something like an elevator speech, to allow that person or allow the interviewer an opportunity to know your bio. I mean, just spit it out, because yes, we have your bio, but it'd be great to have your elevator speech ready. Know the job you're applying for. Know something about the geographical area, and know some current events that will assist in some of the brief small talk that you might engage in getting to know the interviewer, and the interviewer getting to know the interviewee. So know some current events. Be on time. Don't keep the interviewers waiting. In some situations, the interviewer might be ready to take you in a little early, so be on time and be prepared to go in a little early. That reflects well on you. Appearance, professional appearance, dress the part. Be well groomed, because if I look at you and don't think you take pride in yourself, why would I think that you're going to take pride in this job? Good body language, and this is a serious matter. Again, this is a professional opportunity to interact with the interviewer, so take that serious. Personality. upbeat and making sure that that person is excited or expressing the excitement to be there. The interest in the job, that person's being interactive and asking questions that shows interest in the job they're applying for. Good eye contact and also a firm handshake. And I put those two together because I also take culture under consideration when thinking about eye contact and the firmness of the handshake. Culture can play a part in that. So that's something that I try to be sensitive of. Good grammar. And also from a personality standpoint, I think the interview is a great opportunity for the interviewee to focus on the company and not necessarily what the company can do for them, but focus on what they can bring to the table. In the summary, I'll say, let the interviewer know that you're interested in the job. And like Steve said, basically the ask. Let the interviewer know that you're interested in the job. What are the next steps in the hiring process, and how soon will the decision be made? And also a do is a thank you, whether it's a written, unique thank you note via email or handwritten note to the people that were involved in the interview process, I think goes a long way. As well as if someone assisted you in setting up that interview, I think that will go a long way as well if you just do a thank you. Some of the don'ts. Steve hit it. Don't wing it. Don't have this, I got this mentality. Don't wing it. Make sure that you're prepared for the interview. And don't assume that just because I got an interview, the job is mine. Appearance again, the don'ts on appearance. Don't assume. Don't assume that just because you're interviewing for a field-based position that you assume that blue jeans are the attire for that interview. Distractions. Don't have distractions. If you forget to mute your phone and your phone rings during the interview, quickly apologize. Don't look at the phone. Quickly apologize and put it on and hush it or mute it. But hopefully you've taken care of that prior to getting to the interview site. Also on distractions, don't play with things. Don't play with the corner of your notebook. Don't tap your pen. Don't play with your hair. Don't swing your legs if your legs are crossed. So just avoid any types of distractions that can distract from the interview process. Personality. Don't talk negative about anybody, no matter how much you might be given an opportunity to. I can knock this out the park if I just say this one thing about what I encountered. But don't be negative. Don't talk negative about folks. Don't bring your problems inside the building. Don't be cocky. Confidence are great, but there's a fine line between confidence and cocky. Don't be too controlling. In the conversations that you have, don't be too controlling, and my way is the only way. Don't be a know-it-all. Don't talk too much. Answer the question, give some brief elaborations. Don't try to dazzle somebody or baffle them with smoke and mirrors. Answer the questions, be as brief and thorough as possible. If you don't know, say you don't know. And another don't forget gratitude. Be thankful for the other person taking their time to sit down and visit with you. Those are my do's and don'ts, and I will pass the mic and answer any questions at the end as necessary.
Thank you, Clifford. Next, we have Christian.
I'm here. Thanks for having me. I'll follow the same format as both Steve and Clifford did. I agree with 100% of what both of them said. I'll try to fill in with a few other items, but I would say that, you know, they're right on target with my comments as well. In the world that we're in now, as I think it was Steve said, don't use USA Jobs Resume Builder. I would concur with that. And I would go further that depending on the level of the job that you're applying for, the grade and the position, getting more into a conversational text can be helpful in those resumes. Often I see people bullet items, familiar with WebTA, familiar with ProTrax, familiar with Toolkit, and that really doesn't give me an understanding of the depth of their knowledge. And it's okay at some of the earlier lower grades to do that because the expectations are that a familiarity is adequate, but as you go up the career ladder, that is not adequate. So there's always folks who will submit bulleted resumes and those who will submit more textual discussion-like descriptions of their skill sets. As you go up the ladder, I prefer to see the ones that are not bulleted, that gives the reviewer of the application an opportunity to really understand the depth of the applicant's understanding, and also gives the applicant an opportunity to address problems, challenges, barriers that they identified in succeeding and or how they overcame a challenge in that particular job. It's a matter of preference often. Some folks will prefer to do bulleted, but if you do that, then I would suggest that you also give very specific examples of success in that particular position. I would agree with the earlier folks that if you're doing in-person interviews or on the phone interviews, to not speak quickly, speak accurately. If you don't know the answer, don't even try. Just either take time to think through it and come up with an answer, but definitely do not try to pull something out of the air, because for the most part, those interviewing you will pick up on that pretty quickly. It's key to talk about challenges that you've encountered in a particular job and how you've overcome those. I'm a great believer that fire builds stronger steel, and so it's a good thing to speak about things that you encountered that you tried to overcome and may not have, but you still learned from that lesson. And then speak to the lessons that you learned, so the next time you encounter that challenge, you have a better approach, a more agency appropriate approach, possibly an approach that might integrate different skill sets of your peers that you didn't know you could have integrated when you had that go around the first time. Definitely do your research, and if it's a position that you're applying for and you're not overly confident in and familiar with the day-to-day tasks of that position, you absolutely need to reach out to people who are currently sitting in that position. Use your networks and find somebody that you feel comfortable speaking to and asking them the details of what they do on a daily basis. And if you're not comfortable, you may not be ready for that position at that time in your career. That's not a bad thing. It just means you've done your research. You've identified skill sets that you need to work on, and in a year you may be ready. And I would talk to multiple people, but I would not encourage folks just to throw an application in to see what their shot is of getting a position, because often when people do that, occasionally they're selected, and then all of a sudden you've got a position that you're in, you've been asked to accept a position, and you're not sure you want to take it. And one of the less positive things an applicant can do is decline a position that they've been offered. Culturally in the agency, if you put your name in the hat and you apply for a position, the expectation is that you fully anticipated accepting that position if it was offered. So don't think lightly about just throwing applications in. Do your research, be serious, be thoughtful, be familiar with the geography, and don't do that after the position's been offered to you, because you'll likely regret it. The agency is going through lots of changes. Adaptability is going to be key. probably more so in this point in the agency than I've seen in the past. Reliability, adaptability, flexibility, patience, creativity, all of those things should be highlighted in a resume that gives the reviewer the opportunity to see that, you know, a new policy's come out and all of a sudden you have to turn on your heels, you know, do a 180. You're able to do that with the skill sets that you have. That's what people are going to look for. Be incredibly gracious in the interview process as much as you possibly can. Thank the interviewer for their time, the opportunity to even be asked for an interview. Be confident in your skill set. But as Clifford said, there's a fine line between confidence and cockiness. So you always have to be kind of careful there. And don't, if you are familiar with one of the folks interviewing you, if it's more than one, whether it be on the phone or in person, don't use that relationship to joke around. Don't talk about your past field experience with that person in that interview context, because the other interviewees or interviewers may not know you, and they're picking up on that overly familiar relationship that you may have with the other person. So just be really cognizant of the relationships on the phone as you're being interviewed by people or in person. Take the interview very seriously, and in that time period, don't build on those friendships. It's not a bad thing to be friendly, but you can overuse that at times. Yeah, no jokes. I wouldn't joke around too much. Don't do name dropping. Don't ever speak negatively about anything. I would go so far as to say if it's pouring rain out, it's a sunny day. You just don't want to bring any kind of cloudiness into that interview opportunity. Be careful on your social media accounts. I'm sure you're already painfully aware of that just based on what we're all seeing in the world these days, but be super careful on your social media. Many hiring officials, that's one of the very first places they go to these days. They get your resume. Very first thing they'll do is start to Google people and see what's out there on their pages, see what folks are up to. Because ultimately they're hiring you, and your activities reflect back on that hiring manager. It's not just how you're appearing, it's your appearance for the entire agency and the hiring official. I failed to go into my background. I'll give you a quick few comments on that. I started out as a WAE in college at the University of Rhode Island. As a soil scientist, my degree was in natural resource development soils. After college, I went into the Peace Corps, Jamaica, came back, mapped soils in Connecticut for a few years, then spent some time in Washington in a variety of different positions, GIS and soils for the most part, and then came to Massachusetts in 2006 as a state conservationist. And during that time period, since 2006, done several details with the agency, and I'll leave it there and look forward to your questions. Thanks.
Thank you, Chris. Next, we have J.R. Flores.
Thank you. Thanks so much for the invitation to be here today. One of the benefits, I guess, by going last is that everyone's already pretty well covered everything that I was going to cover. So having said that, I'm not going to spend hardly any time with as far as on the written resume, since it was pretty well covered. But let me just go, I actually only have one don't, and the rest of them are do's. So let me go down the list here. Don't assume that the interviewer or the interview panel has memorized your resume. I know some states do it differently, but what I do here in Missouri, I have one team of subject matter experts that review the resumes and grade them. And then I have another team that does not look at the resumes, and they do the interviews with me. So just don't assume that everyone knows what your resume is. You need to make sure that you sell yourself on that. Of course, also if it's a telephone interview, you need to make sure that you're flexible in scheduling, and make sure that you're on a landline. A lot of times, I know even here in town, my cell service, it'll just all of a sudden just cut me off. So make every effort to make sure you're on a landline if it's teleconference, telephone interview, that is. Also, this was mentioned earlier about doing your homework on the location you're applying for. The interviewer should be comparing your experience and answers to the needs of the location, so make sure that you do that well. Also, this was mentioned earlier, I believe also, you may need to write down the questions, as sometimes they're multi-part, and you might have forgotten every part of the, every detail of the question. Make sure you write those down. Be focused on your responses for the questions that are given. Be sure to answer the questions, again, in detail, but stop yourself from rambling, because there's going to be other questions. And this one here is, I think, really important, and I think you should probably give this one some thought. Be prepared to sell yourself as to why you are the best candidate for the position and what you may bring to the table that others may not. Also, this one was also discussed a while back or a little bit ago about giving off a positive attitude. I know that showing confidence is another one. Of course, don't be arrogant, but show confidence. And you may want to do, if it's during the interview, you may want to, or before the interview, do a practice run with a friend. Practice does make perfect, and you may even go on YouTube and to see how folks react to interviews. What are they looking at, and so forth. So practice, and whether it's a telephone interview or a VTC or in person, show enthusiasm for the position and in RCS. Also, probably tougher than the others. Relax. Take a few deep breaths. Just relax before you go on that interview. And this one also was mentioned about, of course, dressing professionally. Also, this one was mentioned also earlier about keeping good eye contact with the interviewer or the interview panel, but of course, don't stare. And if you don't hear the question, or maybe you feel like maybe you didn't answer it all, go ahead and ask the interviewer to repeat it. There's no problem there. And at the very end of the interview, make sure that you ask questions. I've conducted some interviews where there are no questions, and that might send a bad vibe. Well, maybe they're just not that interested in the job, etc. I also, like Christine, I forgot to mention my background. I'm currently in the state conservationist in Missouri. Been here for 9 years, and before then, I served the state conservationist in North Dakota. I served there for 6 years, and I believe we brought Stephen Cole on during that time that I was there. I have served on some national committees. Christine Clark and I served on the Chiefs Advisory Committee. I chaired it for 3 years, and Christine was really a great team member, and she offers really some great advice. Total, as far as working for this agency, I've worked for 36 years, and I've lived and worked in 7 states, and it's all been wonderful. It's been great, and I just cannot think of a better agency to work for. Thank you.
Great, thank you, JR. Now we have a few questions that we've received from some of the members, and so we'll get started on that. Let me go to my questions. First question that we have here is for the panel. I would like their thoughts on the advisability of answering truthfully about why you are interested in some specific opening. When the truth is that it is near your hometown or close to your parents, or you like the weather, something completely other than that actual work. Did you, everybody understand that question?
I'm sorry, mine was a little fuzzy. Could you repeat that again?
Sure. Question that came in via email. I would like the panel's thoughts on the advisability of answering truthfully about why you are interested in some specific opening. When the truth is that it is near your hometown or close to your parents, or you like the weather, or something completely other than the actual work. What are your thoughts on that, panel?
So this is Chris. I'll start off. It's funny, I had that on my list too of things to mention, and I failed to. I wouldn't ever start out by obviously saying, if the interviewer says, why are you applying for this job? I wouldn't say because my parents live down the street, or it would probably be likely obvious from your resume if you had worked or went to school in the geography that you're applying that you already have some connection to that area. But I would, and if that's the case, I would use that. I would say, well, I'm familiar with this area. I worked here once before. I went to school here. I really enjoyed this area, and I know some of the people here, and I'd like to get back to the area. This is where I feel really comfortable, and I know I could do a great job for NRCS in this particular area. If that is not the case and you don't have school or family connections to that area, and the interviewer asks you that, I would still go down a technical path, and I would have done my research, and I would have had some very specific examples of how my career experience connects with the geography. I'm familiar with the practices in that area and what the agency does in that area. And after I felt like I satisfied the interviewer's question from a professional manner, if I felt comfortable, I might mention that there were family issues or something, but I would certainly be more reluctant than not to get into that. Because at the end of the day, the hiring official wants you to take work off their plate. They want you to do the job, and that's really all they're focused on. And that's all you should be focused on. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. April has a question from the audience.
Yes, I got a couple of questions on the statement that Steve Cole made on make the ask. Can you give us a little bit more information on that? How we do that? What does that all mean? Make the ask.
Great, thanks for the question. And I didn't mean to misuse a term. I guess we use it quite a bit in leadership about, what is the specific ask, or getting down to the heart of what you're talking about. What I mean by that is that you should, at some point during the interview process, ask for the job. And by asking for the job, like Mr. Flores mentioned, you need to make it clear that you want that job and that you are the right person for the job. And there's several different ways you can do it. If it happens impromptly when you're answering a question, you could certainly, if it just, the moment just arises, you could make that statement. But generally, in most interviews, at the end of the interview, you will get asked, do you have any further questions for the panel, or something similar to that? And that is your point, to have a prepared statement saying, I truly believe that the skills that I have acquired over the years and my passion for this particular job makes me the right candidate. So I certainly hope that you would select me for this position. And it is fine to make that ask. In fact, I expect it. So did that answer the question? I hope.
Yes, I think so, but I think we probably don't want it too canned. Is that correct?
Right. It should be as personal as possible.
Thank you.
The next question we have is that we received via email. Giving your bio verbally in the interview, should you mention personal life or just professional for anyone?
I think we just need to stick as close to professional as possible, because again, you're here in a professional setting, and that's where we need to keep it on the professional side of things. A little soft, a little brief, personal would be fine, but this again is a professional interaction, and we need to keep it professional.
All right, thank you.
As a follow-up to that, how much information do you want from if we haven't all been career NRCS, how much information do you want from our previous career before we came to NRCS?
Are you talking about on the interview or on the resume?
Both would be great.
Yeah, I like to see it. We've got some folks here in Missouri who worked, like some have worked for the Missouri Department of Conservation. They did that for 12, 15 years. Yeah, I want to see the other job experience. I want to know about it, even if it's not in RCS.
And this is Chris. I would say to that also is that if you've worked for the Corps of Engineers or, as JR mentioned, the state agency, hone those skill sets that you develop in those other agencies to be applicable to the job of NRCS and how you can leverage those skills to better help NRCS be a better agency. It was a long time before I took waitress and dishwasher off my resume, realizing that those skills didn't bring anything to NRCS. Don't make the same mistake I did, right? Don't put on all of those jobs you had. Just focus on the jobs that you had that really can bring and leverage your skill sets to NRCS, and I think that'll serve you well.
When we're completing our resume, and you just alluded to this, I believe, Christine, how much of our career path do we put down? Do we start as that WAE, as that pathway student? Do we mention that if we're applying for a GS-12? Or do we just focus on, 9 and above? How much of that early, and maybe we do list it all, but maybe we don't put up a lot of information on it? How do we handle that?
I'll give you a quick response to kick it over to the other folks. I think for me, it really depends on where you are in your career. If you're applying for a 9 or you're applying for an 11 and you're a WAE and the 11 is a resource con and your WAE experience is directly applicable, definitely put it on. You've probably got 10 years experience. That's an important, within a 10-year window of your career, that WAE experience is super important because it really brought you up in the agency quickly. If you've got 25 years in and you're going for an assistant state con job, my personal opinion is I wouldn't put it on there, but in the interview process, I'd let people know that, I cut my teeth on the agency when I was 18, but I'll kick it over to the other three and see what their thoughts are.
Yeah, this is JR. Christine, thank you. I agree with your comments. I would, if I spent some time as a WAE or a district aide or technician or whatever, I would mention that on the resume, but I would not focus on that. I would focus more on the type of jobs that help prepare me for that current job you're applying for.
That's perfect. Thank you. We did have another question that asked if we are applying for several positions and we are offered one, how do we politely decline others that we might be offered? Or if we're offered more than one, but how do we decline politely the ones that we don't want?
Just a simple email and sounds like I'm echoing there.
It sounds good on my end. You're okay.
Okay. What I would do is just be thankful, send email to select.org, accept that job, and appreciate you sending me.
I'm sorry, JR, could everybody mute their phones, and then JR, if you could repeat that?
Okay, can you hear me okay?
Much better.
Okay, great, great. Yeah, I was echoing a lot here. I would just be upfront and say thank you so much for showing interest in me, but I have accepted another position, and that's all you really need to do. But I would at least send some little three or four sentence email to a selecting official that you did not accept the job for.
Is there any need to say I have accepted another position, or is an explanation even necessary?
Well, I mean, I would go ahead and, I mean, if you're turning down a selecting official, I mean, I would say that I have accepted another position. There's nothing wrong with that.
Good. That's very good information. Thank you. Okay, we have about 8 minutes left and need to see if there's any other questions. I think we've gone through all of our questions that we have. Is there anything else that anybody wants to wrap up with? Any closing comments then?
Yeah, this is JR again. I want to thank you for having me as part of this panel. And yeah, these are exciting times. There's a lot of changes, a lot of opportunities, and you know, after going for a couple of years without hiring very many folks as far as the agency, these are just exciting times. So I want to wish you all the best of luck for those of you that decide to apply for some positions.
Hey, I want to echo that. Thank you to Katrina, to Heather, and to April for allowing me to be a part of this panel as well. It was good for me as a selecting official to jot down some of the things I look for, the do's and don'ts, and just as important as hearing the other panelists talk about their do's and don'ts too. So thank you for the opportunity. I really appreciate it.
Sorry to interject. I had a question for Mr. Steve. He had mentioned that in the dues, the second due, in addition to having professional resume tag, was to discuss career goals and objectives with your supervisor. If the relationship between the employee and the supervisor is not the best, how would you recommend doing that?
Good question. That I get asked that every once in a while, and I don't have the greatest answer. Although I personally faced a similar situation at one time, and but moving on with my career and getting the next level position was very important to me. So I specifically set an appointment with my supervisor and very clearly explained to them what my career goals were. And I was very pleasantly surprised. My supervisor responded very professionally, and the situation worked out well for me. All I can say, and because I supervise a lot of staff, I have a lot of direct reports, and that is one of the things that I appreciate the most, is that when someone wants to come in and start up a dialogue, I am very excited about anyone's career development. And that can be a touchy subject sometimes because folks don't know if you're trying to kick them out the door or not. So I appreciate it when someone comes in and talks to me about their career development. So hopefully you can establish that rapport with your supervisor. One of the reasons I brought it up is that at least amongst the leadership teams that I've been on, we always call the supervisor during the process. So it's best to get it out in the open and have that discussion, and hopefully it goes well.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other closing comments from our panel members?
I'd just like to say thanks to everybody for having me, and I appreciate the opportunity to chat with everybody, and I too wish everybody luck. Tremendous opportunities in the agency, and I would just say, you know, reorganizations create some amazing opportunities, and look at it as a positive. If you're ready, make the jump. Thank you.
Well, thank you all. We had some very good information presented to us, and we will get this together in a resource and send it out to the membership, as well as have the recording available to the membership here in the near future. So Katrina, I'm going to let you wrap us up.
I want to check in to make sure you can hear me.
Yes,
Yes?
I can hear you. Yes.
Okay. All right. I just really want to thank Steve, Clifford, Christine, and JR for taking time, because connections with you all are so important with us as we build our careers. And so I really thank you so much. Thank you, Heather and April. One thing I want to wrap into this whole thing is building self-confidence is so important. And how you build that confidence is to practice. And for some of you when members, you will remember a while back ago in one of the In It to Win It, we had Toastmasters, the USDA Toastmasters come to one of the In It to Win It and talk about the importance of learning confidence, leadership skills, and practicing. And so if you join a Toastmasters or some other type of club that gives you that experience, that's where you can practice these interview skills. You can present yourself well, get constructive feedback from other members in the club. And so I really highly want to encourage you to reach out and get some of that experience and practice, practice, practice. All of these for us as we're applying for a job, but also, like Clifford mentioned, being the interviewer. So if you are the person who's going to interview somebody, they gave us great tips for what they're looking for. I myself have sat on a few interview panels for pathway students, and then for another position in Conservation Planning Technical Assistance Division, and I found it very interesting. And so I got tips from both sides of the coin here today. Thank you all very much. I want to remind you once again, the survey is going to close after today. If you haven't taken it, please go do take it, or encourage others to take it. And we still might be reaching out for stories from you all. I want to wish you all a very happy weekend. Stay safe, and we will talk again soon.
Thank you.